Nigerians continue to
Tonight, the city of Lagos waits at the dock as all routes.
Be the first to know from the north, south, east, west, and around Africa. We break the news.
We are one Nigeria.
Now you can catch all the actions live as the news breaks. We are Core TV News.
Welcome to Core TV,
24-hour news station.
Welcome back on the show. It's Saturday edition of Core Digest, coming to you live on Core TV News here in Lagos. And I have Chuka, Nnabuife, and as well as Douglas Anele with me as we discuss Amnesty, Jonathan's bait for Boko Haram. Now, let me start with you, Chuka. One of the headlines that rocked many newspapers today is that Boko Haram attacks 3 emirs, kills 1. It has graduated from bomb blasts and small pockets to killing hundreds of people. It graduated into abduction of not only poor citizens of the country, but innocent young girls. Now it's attack on traditional rulers. What do you think is the implication of all of this on the ongoing fight against terrorism in Nigeria?
It shows not just establishing insecurity. It also establishes that nobody who thinks he's secure is secure. These are not two things. Not that we are insecure around the country, but there are people who feel that some people are fighting for them, or some people are pushing their cause, maybe political cause, or religious cause, or geographical, regional cause, or party cause. And you and I will be playing the ostrich if we can't clearly say we can identify people who align with this cause. There are people who believe it is their cause, their a religious cause that these people are fighting. There are people who believe that it is their cultural cause that these people are fighting. Some people believe it is their political cause, or they are aligning with their political opposition thing. But now, the Emir of Gwaso, according to your news bulletin, was recently elevated from his status by the government of Borno
into a first class.
First class. He is one of the influential emirs by that understanding. And he's a key factor within the area too. And the other 3 emirs who were with him in the vehicle that was attacked were also influential leaders of that area. They are now subject of attack. It shows one thing, that if the government's, the president's declaration that we are being invaded by by forces of war is being taken loosely in some places and say, oh, he doesn't know what to say, it becomes clear. I personally don't like trying to come in public and say political correct things. I tell you as I feel, you understand? And how I feel about it is that it's not just the government of Nigeria that was wishing this away. The citizenry were playing politics with it, serious politics with it. And it has become so, I am from Igbo land, and we have a saying that he who brought the firewood that is infested by ants, the ant-infested firewood, is the one that invited the lizards and the geckos to pay visit to home. You understand? It's way that allowed it to fester beyond the time we would have nipped it in the bud. And like I said earlier, leadership cannot function if there is no followership.
Okay.
The same thing applies to the issue we are discussing today as regards bait. There are many of us who pushed this cause of carrot and stick. Why don't you negotiate with them? Since you spoke with you gave amnesty to the people in Niger Delta, why can't you do amnesty to the Boko Haram fighters? We had it in the south, yeah, we had it in the north and everything. Even a group of a caucus of northern politicians were pushing for it 2010, 2011, 2012. Now, nobody is safe. That is what the killing of the emir establishes. Nobody is safe here. Even if you think this will push your cause, these are people, power-hungry insurgents, whose ambition is to take over power and take over your seat. It is just like beckoning a coup. If you beckon a coup and a coup comes on, you are not very sure that you are even going to benefit. Because the man who owns the gun and owns power is in total control. And it is left with his whims and caprices. He's living on the edge, and he doesn't listen to reason, and he doesn't appeal to reason. So the state runs on his whims and caprices.
I'll be back with you. Doctor, there are opinions already that the amnesty offer may be patterned after the type offer to the Niger Delta militants. What do you think is the relationship that exists now between Boko Haram and Niger Delta militants?
Well, you know, the human mind is constituted in such a manner that it can see patterns. And on most occasions, those patterns turn out to be illusory. There's a connection, of course. The Niger Delta militants use violence as a means of pushing their agenda. Precisely the same as Boko Haram, but there's a fundamental difference. The Niger Delta people, militants, did not come out with the absurd notion that you must abrogate Western education. What they are seeking for, according to their spokespersons, is that the Niger Delta should receive its fair share, being the goose that lays the golden egg for Nigeria. And they can brandish environmental degradation, escalating poverty, unemployment, etc., as very endemic in their region just because oil is being sourced from there. And to some extent, they have a legitimate case. The Boko Haram insurgents are coming up with an agenda no sensible person should even contemplate. Abrogate Western education, institute Sharia law, you know, that kind of stuff. So that's just where the divergences begin. You see, the idea that because Niger Delta militants got amnesty, and therefore there must be a pro rata extension of that to the Boko Haram insurgents. To me, it shows lack of profound understanding of the dialectics of the etiology of these different, should I call them separatist groups? Of course, that's what they are. You see, the point remains that in looking at this Boko Haram phenomenon, we must look at it from the short term, the middle term, and the long term. Now, the amnesty offer from President Jonathan is a short-term thing. It's an attempt. I can understand the reasoning behind it. Look, we are prepared to accept you if you are willing to renounce arms, lay down your arms, and then join the, society of civilized human beings. Jonathan is appealing to the consciousness of some Boko Haram members that still retain some modicum of rationality, common sense, and humanity. We can understand that. But my point still remains that until government has put Boko Haram under such a severe pressure that they will be the ones looking for avenues to make peace, any attempt to offer them the olive branch will be misinterpreted by the Boko Haramites and their sponsors as a sign of weakness. So, to a large extent, I concur with the president that, the handshake of Boko Haram has extended beyond the elbow. So it is something else now. And government should use all strategies to really mount tremendous pressure on this group in order to make them begin to see reason to negotiate for peace.
Don't you think that that's become harder now that they have in their hostage?
The harder they come, the harder they go. You see, it's unfortunate, really. There's no easy resolution of this thing that will not have certain unpalatable consequences. What we should look at is, between the devil and the deep blue sea, which one is the lesser of the two evils? And my point still remains that we cannot afford to let Boko Haram win. We cannot afford to let people begin to think that, look, the best way to extract concessions from government is by picking up arms attacking innocent and defenseless people. That must be something we must avoid at all costs. And avoiding that at all costs means there will be casualties on both sides. Innocent civilians, innocent people that have nothing to do with the government will be caught in the mess. That is the way it has always been. That is the way it will continue to be as long as we remain humans. And we should not forget that it is very easy to destroy, but very difficult to build. That is why actually sometimes when Boko Haram people bomb a place, it makes the reverberations, spread far and wide. But Boko Haram is incapable of doing anything constructive. Therefore, the point remains that the amnesty, the way I read it, is Jonathan's attempt. It could be futile anyway, to appeal to the moderates among them that can say, okay, guys, look, we have done this. We are causing a lot of problems. Why don't we see the best we can get? But this will only appeal to people who are prepared to reason, who are prepared to use their brains to work out an acceptable solution. You see, people are looking at the short-term issue. My question always is, the bulk of the children in the north, especially in the hardened Muslim north, what kind of teachings are they receiving from their elders, from their imams, from their teachers? What kind of ideas, what kind of ideologies are they imbibing as children? Because the Boko Haram insurgents were kids before they became adults that are causing problems for themselves and everybody now. So we must also begin to think in terms of education. What kind of education is the average Muslim child receiving? What kind of ideas, what kind of ideologies is the Muslim child aware that the world has moved beyond 5th century, 11th century AD to 2014, where, in fact, the paradigm ought to be a knowledge-driven interface between different segments of humanity. It's no longer, in those days, you amass armies, bows and arrows, all kinds of artillery fire. These days, victory goes to the most knowledgeable. And how do you get knowledge? Education. So, my point is that the amnesty has a point to it, that it's an attempt for the government, for the president, to appeal to moderates, those who are still capable, because let also remember that no matter how depraved they are still humans, and nothing has happened to their brains. It's simply that over so many years of indoctrination and, of course, being supported by certain powerful sponsors, people tend to forget that there was a time the president said that there are supporters of Boko Haram in his own government. He said it. And one would have expected him to use all kinds of means to fish them out and deal with them. But sometimes political considerations, all kinds of political manipulations and permutations will not allow someone to carry out effective strategy just because of the idea of political survival.
According to, I'm sorry for cutting short there, but according to the Youth Development Minister, he says that about 30,000 youths benefited from the amnesty program in the Niger Delta. And the aftermath effect was the transformation of these militants to wealth creators, employers of labor, and skilled citizens. Let me quickly come to you, Chuka. Why do government have to wait till all of this happen before thinking of empowering the numberless unemployed and unengaged Nigerian youths?
I like what you brought in from Boni Haruna, and that is where people are pointing within the last 2 days, and this issue really laying credence or whatever to this amnesty gimmick. Thank God you brought this up. Cast your mind to your news bulletin. You read that the Niger Delta movement for the emancipation of Niger Delta are laying conditions for participating in the dialogue or of what you call discussion of how to bring people. So they are laying credence to still being in the trenches. And remember, if you can cast your mind back to about 3 years ago, when they said that they have lifted their moratorium on fighting, that they are going to resume in January 2012. I hope we as journalists can still remember that. Now, this is more like the realm of the philosophical puzzle of the forces of the good versus the forces of the bad.
Okay.
And thank God Dr. Anele is a don in area of philosophy. In the war between the good and the bad, the first thing to do is to identify which one is good and which one is bad. And it is not an easy thing to identify. You understand? And then you begin to also ask yourself, is good the good for all or good for majority, more of them, like the utilitarian tendency, which is actually the underpinning philosophy that runs state. You see, in the modern world, you can actually conquer people, but they will conquer you back. Do you understand? If you have knowledge. Those who have the force of the cavalry, the strength of the military might, can conquer territories. But people will conquer you back. The philosophy of places like France and the United Kingdom predominantly, they are still ruled by a family, by the royalty. But what is the consequence? What is the significance of that? Is it not ceremonial? Spain led this campaign for globalization, Europe's globalization, and conquer territories. But eventually, which ones have the territories? Is it not France and UK? It's knowledge-based. They may actually get power, but they may not get the mind. But let's not veer too far out of what we're saying. Why I'm giving these instances is for people who know to now cast their mind back, to know that it is outdated, the approach of using military might to get power. The man who has knowledge will eventually conquer you, no matter how. The men situation, men they have amnesty for the Niger Deltas, but Henry Oka is still behind bars. The brother Charles is still behind bars, among many others. Does that not lay credence to what I tell you, that you can also claim that you give my amnesty, but you still hold people for their misdemeanor? Do you understand? It is a way of reining in. The essence of governance is to keep the land at peace or relative peace. And why utilitarian tendencies are what we use to govern, most states use to govern, is that everybody may not be at peace with a country, with the situation. But majority, once you have majority at peace, you can go on. And that is the essence of democracy, majority rule. You understand? What we are talking about here is Boni Haruna is just presenting that strategy of, let's get as many of them as could come in. Let's get as many of the dissenters, or as many of the people who are vociferous about amnesty. Let's get them to believe that the state is, not just believe, let's get them to know that the state also has something in line with their direction. But first of all, let us conquer the foe, which is a collective foe. And it has been established in what happened to the 3 emirs and what could happen to me. Remember what happened to Mungunu? He was abducted. Remember what happened to General Shua? He was killed. Remember, there are many of them. Even those people who believe that the cause of Boko Haram is in their favor are already in. I pity the people in the up north. But you will ask yourself, the people who are fighting, which is where what doctor said becomes pertinent. Shekau, according to reports, will be in his early 30s, if he's still alive. And many of the fighters are within that range. When Boko Haram started in 1999, 2000, these people will be, most of these people will be teenagers. So what were people, the leaders, who were the ostars, the mullahs, the emirs, the school teachers, who were in control of the state? What were they teaching these people? Were they telling them that evil is bad? Were they helping to inculturate or acculturate, you understand, or assimilate them? Were they telling them that were they not foreseeing that danger is on board? And let me also ask you, when all of the spoiled schools and all those the spoiled lands, the insecure lands, do you think it is you, Nifemi's money or investment that they will use to rebuild the arid areas that have been despoiled in Borno, in Taraba, in Nasarawa, in Yobe and whatever? Eventually, they will come back to North. It happened, we saw it happen after the civil rule. We had the no victor, no vanquished. But you also know that the East was vanquished. And how much of development had gone there since 40 something years after. The truth remains that the carrot and the stick approach is the standard practice everywhere in military. But the focus must not be lost. Chuka Nnabuife kicked against the amnesty when it was dangled for the Niger Delta militants, because I believe that anybody who raises a hand against it, you understand, and anybody who commits any crime must go in for it. I kicked vociferously. I was vocal about it. Yes, the state had gone about or up to it. But does that mean that we have solved the situation of the ordinary poor of the Niger Delta? The same thing will happen over the Boko Haram. And I believe the state will win. I don't support amnesty to anybody, but I understand it as a communication strategy, because that is the standard practice, and that is how to do it.
We'll get back to that. Dr. Earlier, you made mention of the role of education and knowledge in your earlier remarks. And exactly what Mr. President said recently, that his administration is already mapping out modalities for reintroducing moral education into the school's curriculum. I want us to borrow from your philosophical expertise here. Which establishment or system really teaches moral education? Is it within the four corners of the school, or what people learn from leadership, the culture of corruption and impunity that is growing very fast in the country?
Well, the problem with President Goodluck Jonathan is that as the years roll by, his pronouncements begin to loses credibility. I can assure you that Nigerians tended to give him benefit of doubt when he emerged as acting president and then later president to complete late Musa Yar'Adua's term than now. In other words, when the president speaks these days, people will just dismiss whatever he says as ceremonial statements for a very simple reason. One of the greatest impediments to Nigeria's development is corruption. And unless somebody is a paid hireling or a sycophant, we must accept clearly that Jonathan has not really done much to show that his government is really a government of zero tolerance for corruption. Having said that, I also know very well that you cannot give what you don't have. Jonathan is merely manifesting who he is. And I tell people that if Douglas Anele emerges president today, it is still the mindset that I've had all along that will carry into the place. It's only now that there will be a lot of spin doctors, sycophants, Hallelujah chorus boys and girls hanging around telling me the kind of things I would like to hear. Now, you see, when Jonathan talks about moral education, you see, you begin to wonder whether he even understands what moral education is all about. Because if you sit down with him or with his lieutenants, they will tell you religious education, forgetting that there's a fundamental difference between religious education and moral education. People make this error of thinking that really morality needs religion. That is actually putting the cart before the horse. It is religion that needs morality, because you can read the Quran from page 1 to the last page, read the Bible from Genesis to Revelation, read the Bhagavad Gita, the Upanishads, and all that, and your what I call morality quotients will still be below average. And you may be a totally irreligious person like my humble self, and yet be a man or woman of high moral probity. You see, what we need is, as I said, in order to understand how to solve the kind of issues militant groups like MEND, Boko Haram, and other pose to society, you must look at it from the short term, middle term, and long term. And education falls into the middle term and the long term. You see, the point remains that as long as the average Muslim child is taught that everything in the Quran is literally true and must be implemented irrespective of the socio-cultural and historical circumstances of human beings, and that it is that which is written in the Quran that supersedes every other thing, you can never have adults that have the spirit of tolerance, the spirit of accommodation that is required in this knowledge-driven, globalizing world. You cannot. You see, that is why basing the so-called moral education the president is talking on the two major religions in the country is very dangerous, and that we definitely not support it. What we need is the kind of subject when we were children, they call it civics. Now they call now I think it's been baptized into social studies. You see, when you teach people, there is no way, whether you like it or not, Islam and Christianity are not exclusivistic. There is no way. You may try to use words, to use phrases, to cover, to mask that fundamental, exclusivity of these two religions. Remember, Christianity and Islam, and of course Judaism, are cousins. They all came from the same geographical area, and they accept certain fundamental personages as iconic figures in the religion. For example, Abraham is an iconic figure in Judaism, in Christianity, and Islam. So long as the so-called moral education the president was alluding to is based on these two religions, it will not work, because these two religions are fundamentally exclusivistic. The average Christian believes that Christ is the only way, the truth, and the life. Nobody comes unto the Father except through Jesus Christ. The average Muslim believes that the language of the gods is Arabic. Muhammad is the highest of the prophets. All the truths that are to be known about the universe are contained in a small book called the Quran. So long as you base that education on these two religions, you will never succeed. You must appeal to fundamental universal principles, especially as articulated by philosophers, because these are people who have the intellectual capacity, the psychological disposition to stand aside from the society, examine the society, and then begin to, provide prescriptions as to how human beings can live peacefully with each other. I feel outraged when the average Muslim or the average Christian, call Shekau if he's alive, call any of these Boko Haramites, who will tell you we are doing things for Allah, that we are fighting for Allah. I say, look at, this person is not thinking. If Allah is omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent, infinitely good, and you, mere mortal, is fighting for such a being, it means you are not thinking. It is you that should be fought for by such a being. So if you really believe that God, or whatever name you call it, is omnipotent and omniscient, you don't fight for such a being. You are like potty, you are like clay for such a being. And how can you kill men, force people to adopt a certain religious way of life and say you are fighting for the omnipotent? Supposing the omnipotent has decreed that I should not be a believer, how can you ascertain that? Supposing Allah doesn't want me to believe in Quran, or are you claiming as a mere mortal that you know the entire thinking and mindset of such an omnipotent being? So that is why when people mouth all these religious education, moral, I laugh at them, because they have not even taken time to critically analyze the relationship between morality and religion, and the form in which a proper, effective, and efficient way of inculcating the attitude. Remember, it's attitude modification we are talking about. The capacity to say, I am different. I have my different view. You have yours. But our humanity is superior to our differences, and therefore we must work together. I normally tell people that if you want to live peacefully with your neighbors, go to the Quran. You will find texts that will encourage you to do so. If you also want a dog-eat-dog situation with your neighbor, look into the same Quran. The same Quran that says God is a compassionate, merciful God. Allah does not allow or accept compulsion in religion. There's no compulsion. The same Quran also, in specific verses and chapters of the Quran, encourage the believer to go after infidels and ask them to kill them I'm not joking. They are there in the Quran. Because I have presented a paper where I quoted copiously from the Quran to show that what insurgents, what the so-called terrorists are doing in the name of Allah are actually in the Quran. They are the ones that take the actual pronouncements in the Quran very seriously. The same thing applies to Christianity too. If you really want to be at peace with your neighbor, if you really want to be your brother's keeper, there are numerous quotations in the Bible that will encourage you to do so. But if you want to pick up a knife and slash your brother's throat, your neighbor's throat, your wife's throat, if you look very carefully, inside the Bible, you also see passages. So we must transcend these two exclusivistic religions when we are talking moral education.
Let me come to you.
We must appeal to universal philosophical principles that unite rather than divide humanity.
Chuka, where really do you think the efficiency or the efficacy of moral education lie? Within the confines of an educational system, or what the younger generation see leadership as it is now in Nigeria do?
In both. Prof, Doctor, yes, I can call you Prof, yes. Doctor, his area is philosophy. My area is communication. Interestingly, I also happen to be a knight. And a knight is, by Christian norm, a knight is a soldier of Christ. Good. But you see, he dwelt on something that is fundamental.
Okay.
And where your question is directly, all of them are important. The only factor that is even missing, the main form of education, the main form of moral enlightenment, I prefer the word enlightenment, is from home. And not just from home. From your mentor in the home. It could be your mother, it could be your dad, it could be both. It could be your elder brother, it could be your elder sister, or your younger one, you understand, or an uncle. But from the home to the society. The family is a nuclear society. And the society is what gives you the governance. Governance is, I think I mentioned it earlier here, governance is a big hybrid. Even in the realm of philosophy where his expertise is, you will notice that in the realm of philosophy, there are the utilitarians, there are the deontologists. You understand? The ones who tell you good is good, bad is bad. You understand? They are the ones who say it's good for the majority. They are the ones who don't even believe that there is anything called external existence, subliminal existence. They are the naturalists. You understand? They are realists. They are non-naturalists. There are many schools of thought. But what matters here is this area we are, communication. Perception is key. It is how I communicate to you what the Bible says that makes you follow it as a fundamentalist, or follow it as a liberal, or follow it as somebody who should also tolerate another person's view. And that is why Mahatma Gandhi said that you don't tell me about your Christ. I need to see you as the Christ. I like you Christians. I like your Christ, but I don't like you Christians. But who killed him? It was a fellow Hindu that killed him because he was going far. He thought he was going far to appease the Muslims. Do you understand? So it is not about religion. Religion is, as he said, right, as Dr. Anele said, right. Religious is just going to lead you to morality. Religion is an organized institution. But it's not about Christian, it's not about Muslim, it's not about the traditionalists, it's not about the Judaists. It's about how you communicate that, the essences. And that's why I had to tell you, okay, as a knight, I just said Chuka, and we are beginning to throw up Christ is the ultimate. It is not true. It is not true. No matter how we do it, it is for our organized religion. The truth is that Christ is also the ultimate. If you follow the Christ, you follow the ultimate. If you follow Muhammad, you go to the ultimate. And the ultimate is peace. Shalom. You understand? Peace be unto you. That's what Christ said. Do you understand? Shalom. In Judaism, in Islam. You understand? The ultimate is bringing the society to a whole. Because it's peace with you and do unto the others that you wish to do to, do unto your neighbor as you wish him to do to you.
I want us to drive this discussion back to the issue of amnesty. As it is now, coming on the heels of Mr. President's recommendation, Kabiru Sokoto, I don't know if you can recall that name, who has already been convicted in the line of terrorism and serving a lifetime jail, is already asking now for amnesty as well.
The same thing the men Oka brothers
is asking for.
Because they see a window. But the states have the hold on them.
The lawyer went beyond that to say that he is even ready to help the federal government to tackle the issue of terrorism in Nigeria. Now, put all of that together. Mend is asking for the release of Oka and his brother, who is already serving a jail term in South Africa. We want to find out the possibility of granting amnesty to these two individuals and how it can impact or how it can help us in the ongoing fight against terror in northern Nigeria. That's exactly what will be our next line of thought as we continue in the last laps of this discussion. It's Core Digest. We would love to hear from you. All you need to do is like our Facebook wall as we give you in-depth analysis and review of all of these issues. It's www.facebook.com/Core TV News. Now, as well as follow us on Twitter. Our Twitter handle is @Core TV News NG. You get to watch this edition of Core Digest and other previous one on YouTube. It's youtube.com/Core TV News. Stay with us as we take a break now for the news on the hour. Don't go away.
Core TV News now provide a platform for live coverage of political rallies and electioneering campaign from anywhere in Nigeria. Political news stories, political editorial reviews, political discussions, personality profile, People's Parliament from the National, State and Local Government Assembly. Contact us now on 0803-471-8550 or 0803-724-9733. 01453-3407.
Our 24-hour news station